All right, everybody. So today we're talking about yoga. With us, we have Dawn Piper, certified yoga therapist and owner of Free Range Yoga and Community Center. We really just want to talk about yoga as it is in the country right now, our thoughts on it, what it's really doing for us and our bodies, and kind of how we can incorporate yoga and different styles of yoga to help us with flexibility, performance, aging, just everything that it helps you do and accomplish in life. So, Dawn, I wanted to ask you, how is yoga influenced your life? And if you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into it, how long you've been in it, just give us a background on yourself.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I started yoga in the early 2000s, and it was at Western Illinois University. And I went there. A friend drugged me to class, and I didn't know what this yoga thing was all about. And I found after going back that it really was something that started helping me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all the way
Everything.
around.
Awesome.
Everything. Yeah, the whole gamut. And so after going to the same class for several different years, my teacher said, Dawn, you need to start teaching yoga. And I was like, no, I just want to take yoga. That's all I came here for. And
Right.
She said, nope, you're going to start teaching my class at the rec center. And so I said, okay. And so
yeah, that's
I
a
did.
good start. Yeah.
And that was about 2003, 2004. And I've been teaching ever since. I got my certification for teaching yoga in 2011. And I've been, going ever since.
Awesome. And so has how you taught yoga evolved over that time? You talked about it a little bit, how you started, and now how you're the yoga therapist that you've become. How has that changed?
Yeah, I still have my notes. It's really funny. Like I have my notes, and I would sit there with sheets of paper, and we're going to do this for this many repetitions, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and I'm going to say this thing, and then and it was very well followed. I had very big classes at the rec center. We had loads of fun. And as I've become a yoga therapist, which I've been in yoga therapy for about the last 5 years, I have just grown a lot, and I've become much more authentic in myself. And I think it's really reflected in my teaching. So I don't have to prepare. I just kind of look at the bodies that are in the room or on Zoom with me, and right. I teach to what they're saying to me physically, what they're saying to me with their words.
Right. So it's not as structured. Like you don't have a script anymore. You can kind of see what people are needing, what they want. I mean, you've been helping for years, so that's awesome. Now I know I just recently took your class a couple of days ago, and you started off by reading. And can you just kind of tell me why you would start with reading instead of just jumping into yoga? I know a lot of people think yoga and they really just want to get into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the most important thing is you have to find a way for people to start to slow themselves down. Otherwise, we are running full blast all the time.
Yeah, today's society is just nonstop.
Exactly. And I think it's become even more with COVID. I think we are inundated with stress constantly. And so reading is one of those things that I do to help people to center and to also just really start to find their breathing. People will slow down once you start to take them through a little bit of either a breathing practice or a bit of a reading. And then I can ask them, like, how are you? How are you feeling? What's going on in your body? Before that, I don't think people really know. They might feel certain areas, but we're so disconnected. We're in our minds all the time. We're not in our bodies. And
right.
that allows us to bring both of them together.
Just kind of recenter and get yourself actually in the mindset to accomplish what they need to accomplish.
And in the room. I mean, right. A lot of times we're not even in the room when we're in the room. Like, we're elsewhere, we're shopping, we're doing whatever else.
Right. Thinking about every task that you need to do or didn't do. And
yeah. And then you throw in all the other stuff that people are dealing with all, like just emotionally things that they said, they didn't say, traumas that they've experienced, concerns that they have. And, that is a lot to try to compete with.
Right.
And so I have to help people to try to come, like little by little, come into themselves in a very gentle, generous way for themselves.
Right. And I mean, you can't be, you have to be gentle and generous, because I don't think a yoga class would do what it's supposed to if you had a drill sergeant for a yoga instructor.
I would agree. That would not be my style.
Right. So talking about all of that and getting people into their center, I want to talk about how, like, the benefits of yoga. So I know that, everybody thinks as soon as you do yoga, they think automatically flexibility. I think the biggest one is what people think of, but there's definitely way more to it than that. Just in the physical aspect. In the mental aspect, we'll get to later, but the physical aspect, there's your activities of daily living, how you age. I know you mentioned falling is a huge problem for older adults.
Yeah.
And yoga will help with that, correct?
Yeah. Balance is an incredible, and if we had, like, just even right now, if we had our listeners come up to standing and trying to stand on one leg, there'd be a whole lot of wobbling. And then if I would say, hey, move that leg in front of you, then bring it behind you and just swing it and then switch legs, there would be a lot of wobbling. And so why do we care about that? Well, if somebody's going to try to take a step and they don't know where their foot is, or they don't have the strength to land that foot, there's that chance that they're going to fall. Little tiny side note about that as well. Apparently, and I read this once, but when we're young, when we rock, like if you're standing, you will naturally rock forward and back along the entire foot, toes to heel. And then as we get older, we tend to rock side to side.
Okay.
And I think that also destabilizes us. So benefits of yoga: strength, balance, flexibility, being able to know where you are in space. I think that's a big one. That's another good one. So your proprioception. There really are. There's so many physical benefits. It's just like,
I just want to hit on some of them just to show people, flexibility isn't the end all be all of yoga. That's not the only reason to take a yoga class.
And that is probably the biggest hindrance. People tell me two things. I can't do yoga because, number one, I am not flexible. Number two, I cannot balance. And I'm like, 3, I cannot touch my toes. And I'm like, number one, you do not come to yoga already flexible necessarily. You can inch your way there.
Right.
Number two, you're going to get better balance, because if you work with something, then you will improve that. And number 3, the thing about touching the floor, there are so many, there's so many places along the way to pause. We can stop, use a piece of furniture. We can have our hands on our legs, and you can always bend your knees. So.
Right. Well, and you talking about touching the floor, that gets into like activities of daily living. So I know I've definitely heard and seen people that had to say they got a shoulder surgery and had to put dishes away. And most people don't put their dishes like at waist level. It's above their head. So there are people that have to be able to raise and put stuff above their head. And yoga, definitely helps with that. Yeah. I would say.
Okay. Yes, definitely. Say reaching. Reaching is a big one. Think about sitting. Yeah. Think about getting up off of a chair. Yoga helps, I think, especially for my students, because what I do is very strength-based. It allows them not only more mobility, but definitely they get more mobility, but just the ability to be able to sit down and then being able to use their muscle to get up off of the chair, the couch, etc.
Right. And I just want to kind of say right there, you say strength, and a lot of people are going to think, well, why couldn't they just go to the gym? Why couldn't they just work out? And the way I've talked to you about yoga is you focus on so many of the small muscles that you don't even think about. Like your body has to go through, every time you move, there's a kinetic chain. Well, you work out maybe the big muscles. I know you can go to the gym and work out your quads. You can do everything that you need to do to stand up out of a chair. but there's so many more small muscles that go into those movements that people just don't even think about for stabilizers.
Yeah.
That I think that's, you say strength and a lot of people are going to think, oh, we'll just go to the gym.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to it than.
There is. And I think probably that's a really good point. I think what we do, especially the way I teach, is, so we all have compensations. Everybody has compensations. And so we have areas that are weaker than others that we're trying to not use. So you come to yoga class, and what you're going to do is you're going to be working areas that you're not typically working in ways that you're not used to working them. Hopefully you're doing that in a way that's kind to your body and you're actually listening and having a dialogue of, hey, is this good for me? Yeah, it is or not, and making choices. And so that's the difference is, you can go to the gym. I mean, I'm a lifter. I lift, but that is not the same as my yoga.
Right.
It's two very different types of strength training.
Exactly. So talking about doing yoga for strength, how often would you say you should do yoga? Because I know when we talked first, there was some people do it for a week and then stop for 3 weeks and then do it for a week. Is that helping, hurting? What's going on there?
Well, people do yoga for a lot of different reasons. So if they're trying to build strength, I really think that you need to do it consistently.
Right.
And so, and some people, for some people, they can consistently do it 1 day a week, but they're coming back week after week after week after week. And I think that there's some benefit. I think that you will get more benefit the more often you do it. Now, you're also listening to your body to not go to that far end of the spectrum where it's too much, because you can do too much. Everything can be a poison. Everything can be a medicine.
Moderation is key.
Moderation is key. So I would say a minimum, I like for most people, if you want to start to see benefits, minimum of 2 times a week. I like to really see 3. I think that that's a good amount of time to be spending 45 minutes, maybe an hour doing yoga.
I mean, and that's not just too much to ask when we talk about working out and cardiovascular disease being as bad as it is in our country, and they're suggesting working out more than that. Like they want 5 times a week for 30 minutes of moderate exercise. I mean, can that supplement into that slot of if you're doing strenuous? I'm just asking. This is just me trying to figure out.
That's a good question. So it depends on the kind of yoga. So some forms of yoga, as far as cardiovascular, if you're doing a flowing version, yes, you can count that as to help with your CV. But others, like the style that I teach, you're not going to get. We cannot count that as cardiovascular.
Right.
Although, I guess it might also depend on the physical activity level of the individual, and then also maybe their age.
Okay. So, yeah, absolutely.
Some of the people that I work with, it could be quite hard just to even, to be doing some of the stuff that we do. Right.
No, I've definitely seen chair yoga classes that, some of the stuff they do is what I think is just basic, but for them, it's a workout. That is a workout. They're doing chair workouts. It's not chair yoga. That's a chair workout. Right. So, and that brings us into the different types of yoga. So you kind of hit on it that there are different types. So, there's, you know the different types way better than I do. I know you're very much into 1 or 2 of them, but there's a ton of different types out there. And can you just kind of hit on like the types and styles real quick for us?
Yeah. I'll just throw a few out there. So, because there are so many different kinds, but you could go from one end, like you might have hatha. So and that's really how I started. It's blending movement and breath and, kind of a slow pace, maybe some flowing, and flowing would be like you're going from one posture to another posture to another posture.
Okay.
So that would be a flow. And then you might have something that would, like you might ramp this up to maybe something like, maybe even like a hot yoga where you might turn the temperature up and then be doing some of these flowing and holding and it gets, like there's hard things. that you're doing as you are sweating and all that good stuff. And then in the middle of that, there might be something like Ashtanga. And Ashtanga, is a hard form of yoga. There's a lot of work involved in it. And in Ashtanga, you're doing the same sort of thing from class to class. So so you build up. You have the ability to know, okay, you're going from this step to this step to this step. You're going here, here, here. And then there's a couple different forms that you might do within that. But then, like, there are so many different kinds of yoga. Right. If there are forms in which you might want to, that would be a lot more spiritual. So there's more physical, there's more spiritual, and then there would also be probably some that would be more emotionally based. Gotcha. Right. So really there's a class for everyone. There's something for everybody. There really is, depending on what your needs are. If they want to calm themselves, there's going to be a restorative type class for that. Awesome. Yeah. Yin yoga, which it's a form of movement that's very slow. You'll hold poses for an extended period of time. There's just if you type in yoga to Google, you will find as many different kinds of yoga as anything. Yeah, anything. Yeah, just a ton. So yeah, you hit a hot yoga, and I see that more as that hasn't been around too long. I would say that's kind of like a fad, a growing trend, maybe. I don't know I don't know the history about it. You might know more. No, I don't. I don't, because it's not really my wheelhouse. But I know it's been around long enough that people have been doing it. For a while in Macomb, we did have a hot yoga studio. It didn't last very long. But I think the people that followed it really liked it. Right. There's yoga where kind of you're doing TRX type stuff, or yoga where you're hanging it, like using the silks that you would in circus. There's right. So many different. Yeah. I guess what I was getting at is yoga's really, especially in America, kind of just been an ever changing thing. So when I first heard of yoga, I thought, oh, just basic poses. Like I can do tree pose. And then I heard about hot yoga, and there's just every time I hear about yoga, I feel like I'm hearing about something different that they're doing, or a new style that's being taught. And yeah, I don't know. Yes. And I think that sometimes we as Americans, we have I know this, we have very short attention spans. So yes, we have to make it, a lot of times we have to make it more and more and more interesting for some reason. And I don't really know why that is. Yeah, I know. You want to keep people engaged, but I understand also, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. Yoga didn't start in America, obviously. It has its roots somewhere else that I feel like they haven't had to add all of these fancy things to keep going. So how do you feel about the fads that are happening with yoga? Are you would you call yourself more of the just base roots? You enjoy how yoga started, or are you kind of excited to see where it's going with the fads? I think if it brings people into their bodies, that is the one benefit. If it brings people into their bodies, their mind, their spirit, okay, who cares where you start? Right. Okay. So maybe on that end, it's not, I don't know. Personally, I like what I do. And what I do is it's not classical yoga. I'm very far from what classical yoga is. Okay. So, because classical yoga, it originated in India, and it's been around for maybe 3,000-4,000 years. It's been here for a long time. Right. So, us teaching, white woman from, now in Illinois, it's very different from where the roots are, except for the fact that I try to go back to, the different parts of yoga, not just having it be physical. Right. So you're focused on mind, body, and spirit when you talk about, when you say that the different parts, that's what you're talking about. Yeah.
So, well, just talking about how America does things, there has been, from what I've seen and understood, is a surge of studios in, I'd say, the past 20 to 50 years. There's been just a uprising of studios popping up in
Mhm.
small communities, big cities. Like, there's almost always going to be a new studio. It seems constant that they're popping up. And is that kind of how is that affecting just the yoga studio? Like the let's see how to say this. So there's just so many. Is the market just being flooded right now with yoga studios, do you think?
I mean, I really do think it depends on where a person is. In a smaller community, like for where we live, we have a lot of different kinds of yoga. We've got a lot of different yoga teachers. But again, I don't know that I'd say flooded, because if there's, if a studio is good enough, or if a teacher is good enough and they get a following, they're going to be successful. If they're not, they're not going to be successful. And so then that will go away, and probably something new will pop up.
Right. And talking about something new, with everything happening in America right now, COVID-19, the kind of style of teaching yoga is changing to more of an online base than the in class, because I mean, we're just not allowed to have that group gathering. And how do you think that's going to change yoga moving forward?
Well, for me personally, it's been exciting. I mean, I already had online classes of videos that I had pre-recorded. And then, once COVID hit, I just started teaching my classes immediately, switched over to teaching on a stream base. And as we're moving forward, now I'm going to, when I go back to the studio, I'll be able to teach stream based plus the individuals that are in my room with me at the same time.
Right.
So there's going to be a hybrid. So what I think is, I don't know, there's a lot more people that are doing yoga, because it's, you're in the safety of your own home. You don't have to go anywhere. There's really no excuses. So that's some of the benefits. You get to do it with your pets, right?
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, there's the tech issue. Like we had issues with it freezing a couple times, the class that you took. And it's just like, and some people don't want, they're not interested in doing it in this format. So on one hand, it's just a kind of a cycle. It's kind of a new evolution of what we're doing.
Right. Well, and you say tech issue, and yeah, you had freezing issues, but then you're also going to have some of those studios that just don't want to do the online meetings and don't want to mess with setting up a recording to stream while they're doing classes in person. It's just a change in how we're delivering information at this point. And I mean, as we always see, some people jump on the train. Some people think, no, I'm going to wait until this blows over.
Right.
But I mean, my big question is, do you think that people are going to kind of get used to doing it at home and expect now yoga studios to offer the online as well as the in-class?
I do. I think that people want both. And I was just thinking about something when we were asking, kind of building up to that question. It's about community. So it's not, so like, how can we be like creating community for people, whether they are at home with their dog or their cat, or whether they're in the room with us, or we're creating community with all of these people at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. And there are some studios that, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of expense. It's a lot of growth. And, I mean, I do not blame people if they're just like, I'm done. I'm going to go get a 9-to-5 job.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, good luck with that right now.
Right.
Job market's not exactly open, so
fair enough.
No, and I understand what you're saying about community. I definitely enjoy when I do yoga being able to connect with the person that's teaching it. So I'm one of those that needs to go to the class. And it's also some of those people that need that structure of, yeah, you're doing yoga and you have to be here in the classroom at 5 p.m.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it too, is there's also the different people. Like me, I could do yoga at any time. I mean, there's a ton of videos on YouTube.
Oh, heck yeah.
Right. But I enjoy it more when I have a time I need to be somewhere and show up and have that accountability.
Yes. Yeah. And it really is. It depends on, because, different people are either self-directed or maybe they're not self-directed. That's, that's kind of another way to look at it. And some people really need to have that push into that, that other people are kind of expecting that they're going to be there. And yeah, it's good that there really is something for everybody, whether you want pre-recorded or you want live stream or, just, I don't care how you do it. Just get out there and do some yoga.
Right. And so I kind of want to ask a question, and take your time and think about it, because it might be a doozy. We'll see. Going back to the beginning of this, bringing people to their center, getting people to be in the room. How is that challenging through online? Like if you're doing it in a YouTube video, do you see where that would be more challenging? Because I feel like if they're in their own homes, especially like me, I'm trying to do yoga and I have an 80-pound German Shepherd that wants to do it with me.
Yep.
It's hard to kind of separate everything else that's happening around you and get yourself to that place.
But here's the beautiful thing. This is the coolest thing I think. Yoga is not about making everything quiet and perfect so we can find our center.
Okay.
It is embracing the chaos and the mess and the kids and the husband that's walking across, behind you, whoever else is doing this in the background, neighbors mowing their yard. It's allowing that mindfulness of being in this present moment, wherever you are with whatever's going on, and having a moment to check in on yourself with all of that. So like, I think in the thing I read to you yesterday from Ralph Gates, from his Meditations from the Mat book, he says, the obstacles in the path are the path. And I think that's the thing, is like, the world is messy. The world is chaotic. We are messy. We are chaotic. The world is also good. We are also good. And it blends all together so we can really find that richness.
Right. And I think, that's the way you're talking about it. Sounds like it's just building your resilience to the chaos, kind of helping you see what's happening around you, but also see what's happening in yourself, which I think is a great thing to have in this day and age with the constant go, go, go mentality of everybody, just to be able to kind of take a step back and bring yourself to that, see what your body's saying, see what you need. And there's an idea with yoga that what you're really doing is you're really putting roots down very deep so that the strong winds will not topple you. So yeah, it is that resilience. Right. And I mean, that's a great saying. I feel like it could be mentally and physically, because I mean, you don't want people falling, and so I mean, we already hit on that. So it's, I mean, yeah, it seems like yoga, as much as people think about it as just that couple poses to get your flexibility up, I mean, there's so much to it. You mentioned the 8 limbs of yoga. If you want to hit on that for me real quick, so you can describe it way better than I can.
Okay. Yeah. So we think in our culture, we're very used to thinking of the postures, and that those are called the asana. So there are 8 of the limbs of yoga, but in our culture, we have taken this one and we've put it above all of the rest of them. So the rest of them are, you've got the ethical principles, and those are called the yamas and niyamas. And so those are like non-harming and truthfulness, non-stealing, contentment, moderation, those kind of things.
Gotcha.
All the things that help us to be good to ourselves and good in community with other people. So those are kind of they
Right.
call them the jewels. And then we also have breathing and concentration and meditation, presence and awareness, and also kind of this idea of connecting to something that's higher than ourselves, so something that is bigger than us. And so yoga can be like, even if you go to the same type of class every single time, it's going to be different every time because you're going to be so different. And as you weave in all these different parts, it really becomes way more than just you go to your mat and you do a couple little things and yay, you feel better. It's really about, like becoming your very, very best self.
Right. Which I think is a great way to think of it, because I mean, a lot of people will think that, oh, I'll go to yoga for a year and be able to touch my toes. But there's just so much more to it that if you actually invest in it, I mean, you can really evolve and become your best self. And I think it's great. I think it would be awesome to get more of this word out there to people so that people aren't just thinking yoga poses, that's it.
Yeah, and I would just encourage people, like go to a class, try it, see if you like it. It won't always be the right fit for you. It won't. Some of them will be too woo-woo. Maybe you want more woo-woo. Some of them are going to be speaking in Sanskrit. Some of them won't. So it's like, like you just have to kind of look around and find what you need: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. What it is that you need so that you can be your absolute best version of yourself.
And absolutely all of that in stages of your life. Also, you need different things. I mean, from children to the elderly. I mean, children, yoga, I mean, you said helps kind of bring in that energy and focus it on one thing. We already touched on the elderly stopping from falling. I know I did yoga personally when I was, I think, 24. I broke my back, and it was really either go under the knife and get surgery or do yoga and physical therapy exercises. Right. So, I mean, just depending on where you are at your life, there's just so many different reasons that one person could have.
Yeah, absolutely. With rehabilitation with yoga, it can be just, obviously it can be so good. And then also, I mean, like, physical trauma, emotional trauma, like, it's very interesting because a lot of times we can use physical movement to help people access stuff that they can't speak about, not because they don't want to talk about it, but because they aren't able to. There are no words for what they're trying to express.
Right.
And so one of the couple of things that they say is like, our tissues hold our issues. So, like, and that's kind of a little bit cheesy, but it's true. It's like it's stored in our body are the things that we've experienced. And then also you have to feel to heal. Like, you have to feel your stuff in
Right.
order to move that stuff out. And if you don't, well, you're going to get stuck. And likely what will happen is you're going to have pain somewhere in your body and you're not going to know why. And there might not be a physical reason for that pain.
Yeah. That's fair.
So it's very weird.
I mean, I saw stuff exactly like what you were saying when I was in the medical side before I came back to college when I was in the Army. And I think we always refer to, I believe it was like T4, T5 as the stress bone, because people would just get stress pains like right between their shoulder blades, right at that specific spot. So, I mean, yeah, you definitely, stress is the one that I know personally will add those pains that are just, nobody knows where they came from, but your muscles go into knots. So,
yeah. And so like, speaking about that, what happens is one of the most amazing gifts of yoga, I think, is the breathing aspect of it. So, like, yes, we're able to learn how to breathe better. Also, there's the physical aspect of being able to stretch your torso so that those intercostal muscles in between your ribs can actually expand.
Right.
When we can slow that breath down, then we go from our sympathetic fight or flight nervous system and we go into the parasympathetic nervous system, which they call rest and digest. So then we can sleep better. We can digest our food. We can digest our lives. And it just really changes how we can experience moment to moment and how we can be with ourselves and then how we can be with other people.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, it just goes back to yoga really helps you become your best self. I mean, everything about it, it just works. It works to work on you. I mean, people work out sometimes, I think, just to get that appearance. Some people work out just to get that, I want to live longer.
Yeah.
But the people that are invested in yoga, I mean, it's all about themselves. I mean, it's for you. You obviously have that community, but I mean, you're helping yourself.
Yeah, you get this steadiness and this depth. And it doesn't mean, and I wrote that in my notes, it doesn't mean that I don't have bad days and get mad and yell at my husband or whatever. But there is a kindness that I think we develop when we start to treat ourselves in this compassionate way, in this way that is also very honest. And we strip down a lot of the stuff that, I don't know, in our culture, especially, I think we often, we abuse ourselves a lot.
Yeah.
And then we cover it up. It's like, hey, I got to go get a drink so I can numb this stuff out. It's like, well, what if you stop that part of it and you start to just kind of, I don't know, talk with yourself in a way, like asking yourself, like, okay, how am I right now? Like, really, what's going on?
Right.
And then being able to go from there, it just, we are able to have richer and richer conversations with ourselves that I think is the true, like, it's really about growth.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we talked earlier, just before this, and just trying to figure out kind of what yoga is. And I know that you told me a couple of things, some things you wrote down. I liked the thing you said about the mirror. That's one of the coolest things that I've actually read about yoga. And
so the idea is that, and I think this is really, this is something that I have had to grow with a lot, because that idea of yoga really believes that, like, at our core, we are good.
Right.
Which is kind of opposite to what a lot of us believe in. And so the idea, what yoga really does is it really helps to clean the mirror, or said another way, clean the lantern. So if you have a sooty lantern, you've seen those, and you start to wipe that, you learn the breathing, the meditation, you're starting to practice these concepts of non-harming and moderation and all this other stuff. You start to clean that, and then that light is able to shine forth so much brighter.
Right.
And you can see in front of you a lot farther. And then the idea is that you don't have to fall into the same darn potholes and patterns that you so typically do. Or as you do it, you're getting closer. You're like, oh, I'm going into that same pattern. And then you're like, okay, there's that. And then maybe the next time you go, you stop yourself halfway in. And then the next time, you probably fall a couple more times. And then maybe sooner and sooner you get to where you don't have to go into those.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've already said yoga can change people's lives. And I mean, as long as you do it correctly, in moderation, of course, follow with it, it's just going to be better for you. It's something that you have to invest in yourself, which I think is a great message to get out to people is, I mean, investing in yourself. Yeah, you could say doing one of your hobbies or something that brings you joy. And I agree with that. I think that that's just a distraction sometimes, whereas this is a very, very clear helping yourself in a way that's not distracting you from other issues that are going on.
And you could have both.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with distracting ourselves. I love the idea that, like, sometimes we need to numb. There are times when we need to avoid. There are times when we need to face stuff. So there's times for all of it. It's just the idea that, like, what is the right thing to do in this moment? Like right now, like what do I need the most? And developing that listening to yourself, I think is really important. Going back to, you asked about you mentioned the transformative. I see it all the time. Like my students, those who've stuck with me, and I've had the studio 7 years now. It's amazing to me. It's like it is not, so teaching classes for me, I get so excited, and you can tell.
Right.
I'm trying to contain it, but it is so exciting to me because I get to see people who become their best. Like, and you're like, wow, they're doing great. And then it's like another level of best and it doesn't mean they're perfect. Like they're not, they still have their own stuff, but my God, like, like some of them, like they started from not exercising and now they're cycling 24 miles.
Right.
Weight stabilizes, becomes a healthy weight for them. Maybe eating disorders, they don't have those anymore because they don't have to have that abusive relationship with their body. They can tend to themselves. It is so exciting to see, and it's amazing to be a part of. And like when I drive to, like when I'm actually driving to work, I have to like slow down, like, because I get so freaking excited. I'm just like pedal to the metal. I'm just like, I'm going to teach my class.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I wish that everybody could have that outlook on their job. That's an amazing thing to have. And
yeah, let me back up for a minute. I always tell my students, I kind of joke with them. I'm like, I do deserve this. I have had a lot of crappy jobs in my life. So I did not start out getting to have a job that I enjoyed like this.
Right. But no, I'm glad that you found something you like, and it's really, I mean, I think it's more helpful to your students that you enjoy it so much. Yeah. And I think if you find a yoga studio that you like, I mean, if the teacher's anything like you and just loves what they're doing, I mean, you're just gonna, it's like a magnet. You're just gonna be drawn to love it as well.
Yes.
So I think that's a great place to stop. I'm so thankful for having you on. Thank you for all of your insights. It was awesome. Is there anything else you want to add or say, or just hit on? Is there anything going on? Is there a website that you want people to check out for free range yoga?
Yeah, absolutely. I always will market for free range. Yeah, so it's freerangeyoga.us. And there's some links on there to a variety of different things. We're also on Facebook, occasionally on Instagram, somewhat on Twitter. I guess I would just say, so for some people, yoga is not their thing. Okay, I get that. I've been told this before. I'm like, okay, maybe you just haven't found the right one yet, but maybe not. So maybe it's running, maybe it's MMA fighting. I don't know what it is that for each individual person, but there's a way to draw into yourself and find a certain level of kindness and compassion for yourself so that, that you can become your very best. So, sometimes we can't find that in a group class. So I guess maybe I'm leading into, if somebody is interested in doing this, but they have a love of something else, I also do privates and I do one-on-one yoga therapy, one-on-one yoga sessions. And, I can help people love what they do even more by blending this stuff in as well.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, Dawn. Well, thank you for coming on today. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Bye, Rob. Bye, everybody.